The ping of my phone shattered the illusion of normalcy. Not that anything about my life had felt normal lately, but this was a new kind of blow. My name is Leo Maxwell, and at 36 years old, I was staring at a text message that had just obliterated my career. I was courtside at the U.S. Open final in New York, the roar of the crowd a distant hum as I reread the infuriating words. Pathetic drones like you don't deserve success. The message came from Vincent Logan, my boss at Titan Solutions, a bustling tech consultancy based in San Francisco. 6 years. 6 years I'd poured my life into that company as their lead innovation strategist. 6 years of building relationships, securing lucrative contracts, and generating revenue that kept our East Coast division thriving. 6 years of missed family gatherings, late-night calls with executives in Boston and Atlanta. 6 years of unwavering loyalty to a company that had just discarded me like a broken gadget. My thumb hovered over the screen. Rafael Nadal, no. Wait, this was the U.S. Open. It was Carlos Alcaraz serving for the championship. The crowd around me erupted as Alcaraz won the point. But everything felt muted. Another text appeared immediately. You're fired. Clear out your office by Monday. No call, no meeting, no explanation. Just a coward's way of ending someone's career while they were on what should have been a well-earned reward trip. This trip, a VIP package to the U.S. Open, was my reward for landing our biggest client contract in company history 8 months prior. Ether Corp had signed a 3-year deal worth $15 million in consulting fees. Vincent himself had handed me the tickets at our quarterly meeting, shaking my hand in front of the entire team and calling me the pillar of our expansion. Now he was texting me like a teenager breaking up with a fling. The man beside me in the premium seating section, an older gentleman, perhaps 60, with an air of quiet authority and an exquisite timepiece on his wrist, glanced over. His calm expression suggested he was accustomed to significant events. I'd seen his face before, a fleeting memory from a conference, but couldn't place it. "Everything all right?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. I looked at him more carefully. Recognition hit me like a jolt of ice water. Willie Bradley, CEO of Cosmic Dynamics, our biggest rival in the American technology consulting market. We'd exchanged pleasantries at a Boston tech summit 2 years ago. His company had been relentlessly trying to poach our clients for the better part of a decade. "Just work," I muttered, sliding my phone back into my pocket. But a gnawing feeling in my gut told me this moment was about to become far more significant than a simple firing. Vincent Logan had just made the biggest blunder of his professional life, and he didn't even know it yet. The timing, as fate would have it, couldn't have been more perfect. I had built Titan Solutions' East Coast operations from the ground up. When I started 6 years ago, we had 0 clients outside of California. Vincent had hired me specifically to change that, dangling promises of equity stakes and partnership opportunities that, predictably, never materialized. My background was in enterprise software deployment, but I had a knack for understanding how East Coast businesses operated differently from their West Coast counterparts. I spent 2 years traveling constantly, building relationships with technology executives across 8 states. The results spoke for themselves. In 6 years, I had brought in 38 major clients with a combined contract value of $92 million. Our East Coast division now represented 41% of Titan Solutions' total revenue. But Vincent had always been threatened by my success. He was the type of executive who demanded credit for every victory while expertly distancing himself from any failure. When Ether Corp initially rejected our proposal 18 months ago, Vincent publicly blamed my misunderstanding of their corporate culture. When I eventually won them back with a revised strategy, he told the board it was his strategic vision that turned the tide. The warning signs had been building for months. Vincent stopped including me in senior leadership meetings. He hired his niece, Briar Logan, as assistant director of East Coast relations without consulting me. Briar had 0 experience in the tech sector and barely understood a spreadsheet, but she was family. 3 weeks ago, I discovered Vincent had been taking client calls that should have gone through me. When I confronted him about it, he simply said he was streamlining communications and that I shouldn't worry about matters above my pay grade. My wife, Camilla, had noticed the change in my demeanor. "He's setting you up for something, Leo," she'd said after I told her about Briar. "Men like that don't bring in family unless they're planning to push someone out." I had dismissed her concerns. After 6 years of generating revenue and building the East Coast business, I thought my position was unassailable. I had client relationships that would be impossible to replace quickly. I had institutional knowledge about East Coast markets that Vincent needed. I was wrong. What I didn't know was that Briar had been systematically working to undermine my client relationships. She had convinced Vincent that I was going rogue and putting East Coast client interests ahead of company profits. She suggested that my frequent travel was excessive and that most of my responsibilities could be handled remotely by someone based in San Francisco. The U.S. Open trip was supposed to be recognition for my achievements. Instead, it was apparently Vincent's way of getting me out of the city while they prepared my termination. But Vincent had made one critical miscalculation. He fired me while I was sitting next to the one person who could turn his power play into a catastrophic business mistake. I pulled out my phone again and reread Vincent's messages. The words felt even more insulting the second time. "Pathetic drones like you don't deserve success." The arrogance was breathtaking. Willie Bradley was still watching the match, but I could sense his attention had shifted subtly in my direction. He was the kind of executive who noticed everything, and my reaction to those text messages hadn't been subtle enough. The full weight of what had just happened began to settle in. Vincent hadn't just fired me. He had humiliated me. The timing was calculated to cause maximum damage. Firing me while I was in New York meant I couldn't defend myself, couldn't gather documents, couldn't speak to clients or colleagues before word spread through the office. But as I sat there watching Alcaraz celebrate his victory, something shifted inside me. The initial shock and hurt were transforming into something colder and more focused. Vincent had underestimated me completely. I thought about my client relationships. EthaCorp had specifically requested that I remain their primary contact throughout the contract period. Derek Jordan at Horizon Labs had told me just last month that he considered me irreplaceable. Cheryl Lawrence at Ecosystems had been pushing for a contract extension specifically because she trusted my oversight of their implementation. These weren't just business relationships. They were partnerships built on 6 years of trust, competence, and cultural understanding. Vincent seemed to think he could simply inherit them by firing me and installing his niece. He was about to learn otherwise. I glanced at Willie Bradley again. Cosmic Dynamics had been trying to break into the West Coast consulting market for years, but they lacked the client relationships and cultural knowledge to compete effectively with established firms like Titan Solutions. What if they suddenly had access to both? The crowd began filing out as the trophy ceremony concluded. Willie stood up and stretched, then looked at me directly. "Forgive me for being presumptuous," he said, "but you look like a man who just received some very unpleasant news." I made a decision that would change everything. "Actually," I said, standing up and extending my hand, "I think I just received the best news of my career. I'm Leo Maxwell, formerly of Titan Solutions." He smiled and shook my hand. "Willie Bradley, Cosmic Dynamics, and I suspect that formerly is about to become very significant." I pulled out my phone and showed him Vincent's messages. Willie read them twice, his expression growing more interested with each word. "Well," he said finally, "this is quite fortunate timing. Would you be interested in continuing this conversation over dinner? I know an excellent seafood place near the Statue of Liberty." The game had just begun, and Vincent had no idea he was about to lose everything. By Sunday evening, I was back in San Francisco with a job offer from Cosmic Dynamics that exceeded my wildest expectations. Willie had made it clear that he wanted me to lead their new West Coast expansion, offering a 35% salary increase and equity stakes that Vincent had promised but never delivered. Monday morning arrived with the city shrouded in a thick fog and the kind of chill that sinks into your bones. I walked into the Titan Solutions offices for what I knew would be the last time. Vincent was waiting in the conference room with Breyer and our Human Resources Director, Patricia Wells. "Leo," Vincent said as I entered, his tone artificially cheerful. "How was New York?" "Educational," I replied, taking a seat across from him. Patricia slid a termination packet across the table. "Standard severance, non-compete agreements, return of company property. Nothing generous, but nothing illegal either. I think you'll find everything in order," Vincent said. "We've decided to restructure the East Coast Division under Breyer's leadership. Your services are no longer required." Breyer sat there smirking like she had just won a grand prize. She was 24 years old with an online certificate in business acumen and precisely zero international business experience. "What about my clients?" I asked. "They're company clients," Vincent said. "Breyer will be handling all East Coast relationships going forward." I signed the paperwork without argument. Vincent looked surprised by my compliance. "I have to say, Leo, I expected more pushback from you. This is refreshing." "No point fighting the inevitable," I said, standing up and shaking his hand. "I wish you the best with the East Coast market." What Vincent didn't know was that I had spent Sunday making phone calls, not to clients yet, that would come later. But I had contacted my lawyer, reviewed my employment agreements, and confirmed that my non-compete clause only applied to direct competitors in the San Francisco metropolitan area. Cosmic Dynamics was based in Los Angeles. I cleaned out my office while Breyer watched from across the room. She made a point of sitting at my old desk and loudly discussing East Coast strategy with anyone who would listen. The performance was pathetic, but I let her have her moment. By Tuesday morning, the real damage began. Derek Jordan from Horizon Labs called the main office asking to speak with me about a contract modification. Patricia transferred him to Breyer, who spent 15 minutes trying to explain why she was now Derek's primary contact. Derek hung up and immediately called my personal cell phone. "Leo, what is happening at your company? This young woman knows nothing about our agreement." "There have been some changes in management," I told him. "I can't discuss specifics right now, but I'll be in touch soon." Similar calls came from 3 other clients that week. Cheryl Lawrence was particularly direct. "If you are no longer with Titan Solutions, we need to discuss our contract immediately." Vincent began to panic by Thursday. He called my cell phone 6 times, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails about misunderstandings and rash decisions. Breyer had apparently managed to offend 2 clients and completely bungle a conference call with a potential new account. The breaking point came Friday morning when Etha Corp sent a formal letter requesting termination of their $15 million contract due to material changes in account management. Vincent showed up at my apartment that evening. "This is ridiculous, Leo. You're destroying relationships out of spite." "I'm not destroying anything," I said. "I'm simply not available to save you from your niece's incompetence." "What do you want? More money? A better title?" "I want nothing from you, Vincent. You made your choice in New York." He left looking like a man who had just realized he had made a catastrophic mistake. But it was too late. The damage was done, and I was just getting started. Saturday morning brought a call from Patricia Wells. She sounded exhausted. "Leo, I need to ask you something confidentially. Did you know about Breyer's hiring before it was announced?" "No. Why?" "Because I've been reviewing the paperwork and some things don't add up." Vincent backdated Breyer's employment to 3 months ago, but her first day was actually 2 weeks ago, and her salary is higher than yours was. This was new information. I had assumed Breyer's hiring was simply nepotism, but Patricia was suggesting something more calculated. "What else did you find?" Vincent's been intercepting your client emails for 6 weeks. He set up a forwarding rule that copied everything to his account, and he's been telling people that you were planning to quit anyway." The picture became clearer. Vincent hadn't fired me impulsively. He had been planning this for months, systematically undermining my position while preparing Breyer to take over. The U.S. Open trip wasn't a reward. It was a convenient way to get me out of the city while he completed the transition. Patricia continued, "There's more. Vincent's been negotiating with a consulting firm in Seattle about acquiring our East Coast client list. He told them you were unreliable and that the company needed professional management of national relationships." Now I understood. Vincent wasn't just replacing me with his niece. He was planning to sell the East Coast division to a Seattle firm and cash out while taking credit for the business I had built. "When is this supposed to happen?" The preliminary agreement was signed 2 weeks ago. Full transfer is scheduled for next month. Vincent had played this perfectly. Fire me, install Breyer as a temporary placeholder, then sell the entire operation to the Seattle firm for a significant profit. Breyer would probably get a bonus and a recommendation letter, while Vincent would look like a strategic genius who had successfully monetized the East Coast expansion. There was just one problem with his plan: the clients. East Coast business culture values personal relationships and continuity. Derek Jordan wasn't going to accept some random Seattle consulting firm just because Vincent Logan said it was a good idea. Cheryl Lawrence would terminate her contract before working with people she had never met. The New York pharmaceutical company that had been negotiating a new deal would walk away immediately. Vincent had calculated the financial value of the client contracts, but he had completely misunderstood what made those relationships valuable in the first place. I called Willie Bradley in Los Angeles. "Willie, I need to accelerate our timeline. Something significant is happening with Titan Solutions' East Coast operations." "What kind of something?" I explained Vincent's plan to sell the division to a Seattle firm. Willie was quiet for a long moment. "That's actually perfect for us," he said finally. "If he's planning to sell, it means he's already given up on managing those relationships himself. And if the clients are unhappy with the transition, they'll be looking for alternatives." "Exactly. How quickly can you start?" "I can be in Los Angeles by Wednesday." "Excellent. I'll have legal draft your employment agreement. And Leo," he paused, "start making a list of every client relationship you can transfer. We're going to turn Vincent's master plan into the biggest gift our company has ever received." Vincent thought he was playing chess, but he had just handed his opponent every piece on the board. I flew to Los Angeles on Tuesday night and spent Wednesday morning in Willie's office finalizing my employment agreement. The terms were even better than I had expected: Director of West Coast Operations, a significant equity stake, and complete autonomy over client relationships. Willie had done his homework. Cosmic Dynamics had been trying to break into the San Francisco market for 3 years, but they lacked the relationships and cultural knowledge to compete with established firms. Hiring me solved both problems immediately. "Your timing is remarkable," Willie said as we reviewed the contract. "We've been building our West Coast infrastructure for months, but we needed someone who understood both markets." By Thursday, I was making calls. Derek Jordan was my first contact. I explained that I had joined Cosmic Dynamics and would be continuing to support his technology implementation from Los Angeles. "This is much better," Derek said. "Cosmic Dynamics has an excellent reputation. When can we transfer the contract?" "I'll have our legal team contact you next week." Cheryl Lawrence was equally receptive. She had been frustrated with Breyer's lack of knowledge and was relieved to learn that I would continue managing her account. "Finally, someone who understands our business," she said. "Send me the transfer documents immediately." The New York pharmaceutical company was more cautious, but they agreed to a meeting. The potential $12 million contract that Vincent thought he was selling to the Seattle firm was actually still available. By Friday, I had confirmed transfer agreements with 6 major clients representing $42 million in contracted revenue. 3 more clients wanted to schedule meetings to discuss moving their accounts. Vincent had no idea what was happening. Breyer was apparently still trying to convince clients that she could handle their needs. While Vincent was finalizing details with the Seattle consulting firm, the trap was set perfectly. Monday morning brought chaos to the Titan Solutions offices. Derek Jordan's legal team sent termination notices for 3 separate contracts. Cheryl Lawrence requested immediate return of all proprietary documents. The New York pharmaceutical company canceled their negotiation meeting. Vincent called me at 9 a.m. "What the hell are you doing, Leo?" "I'm working for Cosmic Dynamics now. My clients chose to follow me." "You can't do this. You have a non-compete agreement." "I checked with my lawyer. Cosmic Dynamics is based in Los Angeles, not San Francisco. The non-compete doesn't apply to national companies." The silence on the other end lasted almost 30 seconds. "You're destroying the East Coast division." "No, Vincent," I said, a calm strength in my voice. "You destroyed it when you fired me via text message. I'm just helping my clients find better service." Tuesday brought more termination notices. By Wednesday, the Seattle consulting firm was asking serious questions about the value of acquiring an East Coast division with no clients. Thursday morning, Patricia Wells called again. "Vincent's having a complete meltdown. The Seattle deal is falling apart. Breyer quit yesterday, and the board is asking for explanations." "What kind of explanations?" I asked. "How they lost 70% of our East Coast revenue in 1 week?" Friday afternoon, Willie called with an update. "The New York pharmaceutical company wants to move forward with us. They're offering $15 million over 3 years. Excellent. And Leo, I just received a very interesting phone call from someone named Patricia Wells. She says she's interested in discussing employment opportunities with Cosmic Dynamics." Vincent's empire was crumbling, and the best people were jumping ship before it sank completely. The man who had called me pathetic was about to learn what failure actually looked like. The final blow came exactly 3 weeks after Vincent had fired me in New York. Willie called me into his office with news that made everything worthwhile. Titan Solutions board just voted Vincent out as regional director. Apparently, losing $87 million in contracted revenue was considered a fireable offense. I felt a quiet satisfaction, but no joy. Vincent had brought this on himself through arrogance and poor judgment. "There's more," Willie continued. "Breyer Logan is apparently telling people that you sabotaged the East Coast division out of spite. Some of your former colleagues are asking questions about her version of events." I had expected this. Vincent and Breyer needed someone to blame for their failure, and I was the obvious target. "Let me guess," I said. "They're claiming I stole clients illegally." "Exactly. But here's what they don't know. Patricia Wells has been documenting everything. Email forwards, backdated employment records, the attempted sale to the Seattle firm. She's prepared to testify that Vincent had been planning your termination for months." The irony was perfect. Vincent's methodical planning had created a paper trail that proved his actions were calculated rather than reactive. If he had simply fired me honestly, he might have retained some clients. Instead, his deception had made my departure look justified to everyone involved. What happens now? Patricia starts with us next month as East Coast Operations Manager. Derek Jordan is recommending us to 2 companies in Boston, and the New York pharmaceutical deal is expanding to include their sister company in Chicago. Vincent's text message from New York had cost him everything: his job, his reputation, and the business division he had tried to steal. Meanwhile, Cosmic Dynamics had gained a foothold in the American market worth over $100 million in potential revenue. Justice had been served quietly, professionally, and completely. 6 months later, I was reviewing quarterly reports in my Los Angeles office when Camilla called from San Francisco. "You'll never guess who I saw at the grocery store yesterday," she said. "Vincent. He was bagging groceries at the supermarket near our old apartment. He looked terrible." I felt no satisfaction from Vincent's downfall. Destroying someone's career brings no lasting peace, even when they deserve it. But I had learned something valuable about loyalty, timing, and the importance of treating people with basic respect. Cosmic Dynamics had exceeded all expectations. We had landed 14 major American clients and opened offices in Dallas and Miami. The New York pharmaceutical contract had grown into a partnership that spanned 5 states. Most importantly, I had found a company that valued competence over politics. Willie treated me as an equal partner, not a threat to his authority. Our success was shared success, not a zero-sum competition. Camilla joined me in Los Angeles in the spring. We bought a house in Malibu and started talking about children. For the first time in years, I felt like I was building something permanent rather than just surviving someone else's ambitions. The U.S. Open returned to New York in September. Willie gave me tickets again, but this time I watched from the corporate hospitality suite that Cosmic Dynamics had purchased. Carlos Alcaraz won his second U.S. Open title that day. As he lifted the trophy, I thought about how much my life had changed since the previous year. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. Vincent's text message had set me free, even though that wasn't his intention. I never thanked him for it, but maybe I should have.